truth in a world of lies. You are listening to the John H. Project.
Trust no one. Trust no one. Trust no one.
You found it. You're here. You're headlong down the runaway train that is the Anomic Age, and I'm your host, John H. Happy to be coming at you once again in the not-so-wee hours of the PM, rarely and oddly enough. We got a great guest. We got Michael Volpe coming at you in just a moment. But before we get into that, please check out anomicage.com if you've not already done so. Like all the likes, subscribe to all the subscriptions. PayPal.me/anomicage, Patreon.com/anomicage as well. Best ways to help me out and follow the program. But without further ado, and before this gets too squirrely, I think Michael's video is working great. Mine's just going to be not so good today. But I'll focus on him. He's the mainstay of the show. Anyway, so Michael Volpe, no stranger to anyone that's been on the show, investigative journalist, working for many years, trying to sort out the mishaps, crazy, and otherwise just insanity of the CPS and Family court system. He's going to get into a number of his most recent works today. Real excited to have you back on the show here, Michael. Thank you so much, sir, for being patient with me and sort of hanging out for about 10 minutes. Thank you, man.
All right. No worries. You started with a new technology. We're going to do our best. And so you mentioned that I do a lot with CPS and Family Court, and oftentimes when I come on, it's to recount some tragic stories. And I think we'll do that a little bit today, but I think I've got some fairly good news. So in the last 2-3 months, I've been following some events that have come out of Arizona. And in Arizona, the state legislature, both parts of the state legislature, created what they call the ad hoc Joint Committee on Family Court Orders, and that is being spearheaded by Arizona Republican State Senator Mark Fincham and Arizona Republican State Representative Rachel Keschel. And there are 6 legislators on the committee, and I think it's 3 from the Senate, 3 from the House, but the 2 I mentioned are the co-chairs, and I recently started a podcast with a guy named Rich Lutman. You can find him at lutman.substack.com. That's LUTHMANN.substack.com. And I'm at michaelvolpe.substack.com. But we interviewed both Ms. Keschel and Mr. Fincham about what was going on. And so the ad hoc committee is a series of hearings where parents, journalists, maybe anyone is invited to testify, though primarily the people who actually come testify are parents who have been victimized by the family courts. And they've held, I think, 3, and the last one was on June 16, 2025. And a whole bunch of parents and others have testified. They have also, as a result of that work, proposed HB 2256, which would have banned therapeutic interventionists to be appointed unless both parents agree to have them be appointed. Because one of the things that came out of the hearings was how many parents had these. And a therapeutic intervention, I've never heard the term except in Arizona. I can't tell you exactly what this is supposed to mean.
I don't even know what that means.
Right, but it's something that a judge forces on parents by appointing them and making the parents pay for them. And what came out of the hearings is that in one case, I think it was $1 million, but these exorbitant fees, nothing ever actually gets accomplished. So they propose this law. The law gets through the Senate, it gets through the House, and it winds up on Governor Katie Hobbs, a Democrat, her desk, and she goes and vetoes it. And we asked both Ms. Keschel and Mr. Fincham why she vetoed it, and Mr. Fincham was a bit more colorful, and he's more colorful in general. And he said, well, she's a former social worker, and I want to say there's nothing wrong with being a social worker, so that in itself. But basically, he felt that she was doing a solid for her friends in the social work, therapy, psychology field that rely on court appointments to make lots and lots of money. And so she was protecting the system, being anti-parent, anti-child. And look, we challenge both Mark Fincham and Ms. Keschel with the arguments that Hobbs made. And, one argument that she made was this is really just about one case because Mark Fincham's girlfriend, I believe, she had a therapeutic interventionist. That's how he found out about it. But it's about a lot more than one case. I did a story with a guy, David Segui, the former Major League Baseball player. He had a therapeutic interventionist among about 11 people who were appointed to his case because he signed a multi-million-dollar contract as his last contract when he was still playing in the majors. So, he's a rich guy, so I guess it's okay to take tons of money from him.
Of course.
And his kids were sexually abused by their wife. They were taken from him. He wasn't allowed to see them for a very long time, I think a year or more. And in the meantime, he's paying for a therapeutic interventionist, just a load of people. And he did eventually get his kids back. I think one of them is in college now, but he's not the only one. I did Tori Nielsen, who's now 18. She might be 19 now, who described being forced into something even worse, reunification camps, but also had a therapeutic interventionist. There are many stories with them. So that I think is bunk. And the other thing that Hobbs said was, these are complex cases. We should give judges all the tools that we need. And if you don't give them this tool, you're just going to hurt children. And which would be a good argument if you didn't have all of these bad results from these therapeutic interventionists. I personally didn't like the bill that much because what the system will do is they'll twist a few things around, and instead of having this thing be done, the person that was a therapeutic interventionist will do something slightly different here, slightly different there, and they'll call themselves a family therapist or a blah, blah, blah therapist. And now they're not a therapeutic interventionist, and now you can get them appointed because you only ban therapeutic interventionists. I didn't think it was necessarily that great a bill anyway, but be that as it may, she did veto it, but they both think that this can be an electoral issue. And we should mention she's up for re-election in November of 2026. So, not immediate, but coming around. They think that this, if she gets in the way of their agenda, and this isn't the last law they're going to propose, that they can make that into an issue that you are anti-parent, anti-child. And there's a lot of parents that vote in Arizona, so if they can get that label going, that would be good. But I went from the 18th through the 25th of May to Ada County, Idaho. I actually stayed in Meridian, mostly Idaho, but I did go to Boise, where their court is. And by the way, I raised so much hell. I got the first time I went to a hearing was Monday, I think it was the 19th.
Yeah. And
my last hearing was the 23rd or 22nd. I went to hearings like 3 days.
Jeez.
By Friday, the head administrative judge, his name is Stephen Hippler, had written a letter to myself and my mate, Mark Escobar, who I'd never met before this, but he and I, because we both were down there, went to all of the hearings together for 3 days. We raised so much hell. This guy, Judge Hippler, let me tell you about Judge Hippler in a minute, wrote a letter banning both of us, and he called us an organization. We're an organization in that we both were at the courthouse together and sat together. There's no actual formal, and he banned us. And the reason he banned us is because it's very loose inside the Ada County Courthouse. That's not all courts. So they allow you to have cell phones, but they don't allow you to record. They don't allow you to take photos inside the courtrooms. Now, I thought you were allowed to take photos like in the courthouse outside the courtroom.
Yeah, it should be. There's no hearing going on in the lobby.
Right now, but there were signs that said no photographs, but I thought they meant inside the courtroom.
Yeah.
But I was one of the judges who I had done several stories on. Her name is, she's a magistrate, but she's a junior judge, but her name is Diane Walker, and she likes to give kids to abusers, likes to be anti-woman, likes to violate people's rights, constitutional due process and otherwise. And so I was looking forward to watching one of her hearings. And so So then when you walk, and by the way, this courtroom is really nice. I guess they're all nice looking. But anyway, so I walk in, and on the first floor, they got this like big computer type thing, and it's got everybody's court case, right? And so I find Walker, and she's got 4 that day, right? And so I take a photo of that. And then she's on the 4th floor. So we go to the 4th floor, and we're right outside of her courtroom. And then outside of her courtroom is like a paper of all her court cases that day. And on the piece of paper, there's 0, right? So I take that because I'm showing how she's illegally closing her courtroom. And part of the illegal closure of her courtroom is that outside of her court, it looks like she has no cases, even though on the bottom computer, there are 4 court cases. And then Mark and I went to the clerks on the 1st floor trying to get answers, to the clerks on the 4th floor trying to get answers. And that's real. And then I wrote the article. And then her court, her clerk, I think, called me back the day after the article was published. But he called me back and said, we're not closing courtrooms. You're allowed in, blah, 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 blah. And then by the 5th day, this Judge Hippler writes this letter, and he cites my photo outside of her courtroom. And also her courtroom was actually locked. You can't take a photo of that, but I said her courtroom was locked. So he cites the photo that I took as broke the rules. And the reality is they didn't like that I had busted her, that she was closing courtrooms. So Hippler, by the way, the Brian Koberger trial, the guy who is accused of killing the 4 college kids in I believe Idaho. He is presiding over that trial, and he is the administrative judge who assigns cases. And I point that out. However, let's get real. If you or I were the administrative judge and assigning cases, obviously we would assign ourselves that plum case. So I don't think it's that big a deal that he assigned himself to the high-profile case. But I did mention when I wrote the article that I thought I was honored that the man who was presiding over the Brian Koberger case had time to write a letter about me. So look, I got to Boise on the 18th, and by the 23rd, I had this letter. It was great. But we met, along with that, we met with both Republicans, State Senator Tammy Nichols and State Representative Heather Scott from Idaho, and they indicated that they are open, or that they would like to do something like that ad hoc committee, but they haven't done it yet. And I'm going to, anywhere I go and every time I talk, I'm going to mention those 2 names because those are the 2 people I met with. I'm going to say that they're saying they want to do it, but they haven't done it yet. But the reason that I think this is really important, and when we interviewed Rich and I, Mark Fincham, he said that politicians from 5 states, he didn't mention the states, but politicians from 5 states have called him to inquire about how would they hold such a hearing. So I think there's a unique opportunity, not only in Arizona, but throughout the country, to have these, you don't have to call them the ad hoc committee, call it whatever you want, but to have hearings on family court abuse. And it's a unique opportunity. I know that both Nichols and Scott have talked to a lot of parents because I was there for. So I know that they understand that there's a big problem in Idaho, and I believe that politicians in all 50 states know it's a big problem because they are getting a lot of calls. And so what's unique, and then I wanted to play from the last hearing. So let me finish this thought, and then hopefully we can get this video up.
Yeah.
What's unique is, so for instance, in 2012, Connecticut had a similar hearing. So it raised some waves, and it did a few things, but really Connecticut has the same kinds of abuses and corruptions that it did after the hearings. And that was a Democrat, Minnie Gonzalez, who spearheaded those hearings. And she, I think, is still in the state legislature and still trying. And she told me that the hard part is, I know there's a problem. I speak out, but I don't have the votes on my own. And she says it's really hard to get people to go against judges. That's, I think, if not an exact quote, that's a paraphrase that's really close and definitely exact in meaning. It's very hard to get others to go stand up against judges. But so the few things that are unique. One, what this committee is doing in Arizona is they hold a hearing, and then as a result of the hearing, clips get put on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, other social media. And then 2-3 weeks later, they hold another hearing. They plan to hold hearings probably in November. like every 3 weeks, every 6 weeks. So there's time in between. But so it creates a stir. The stir continues because of social media, and then they have another hearing. In Connecticut, they held all the hearings, I think, over a week. So it created a stir, but after 3-4 weeks later, the stir was gone, and then everyone moved on. This isn't going to go away as quickly. Number two, technology is different. So they live stream their hearings. I don't know if when Minnie was doing it in 2012, if live stream was even a thing yet. It definitely wasn't a thing that someone would think about. So that's different. I don't think that Facebook had the video function yet. YouTube was huge, and so certainly you could take a clip and put it on YouTube, and that might have been happening. But TikTok, I don't think was even created yet. So there's a lot more social media. There's a lot more ways to get clips out. And number three, and I think this is the most important thing, there's still probably a stigma, but the stigma is far less. It used to be like 15 years ago. If you lost your kids to CPS, or you were told by a judge you can barely see your kids, you can never see your kids, that the stigma was you've done something wrong. Yeah. So that was something you wanted to tell people. So as a result, these stories weren't getting out. And people thought that it only happened to them. Slowly over time, and in part because of things I did, but certainly not only me, but the whole has brought so many of these stories forward that the stigma has gone away and that people realize they're not alone. And that also creates a unique moment because it can be an electoral issue, because I think that now most people know someone, or they are someone who has gone through this, because people are speaking out not only to the media, but to their friends and their family. So many people know a family member, a friend, a work colleague, maybe another parent in T-ball or another league, and they're going through this. And so it is personal to maybe not everyone, but a lot more of the mainstream. And Keschel and Fincham may be right that this can be an electoral issue that galvanizes a lot of people, not just the people that go through it. I don't know if you can try to get the video up. So on 16th, they had their last hearing. There were many parents who testified, and I picked one out, and I picked this out because I didn't see her clip anywhere else. So it is a really good story, but I wanted to get this clip more attention because this is one of the ones I haven't seen replayed anywhere else. Can you get that up?
Absolutely. Let's try to pull that up there. I got to ask you while we're talking, like, what happened when you guys got barred from the courtroom? How did that go?
No, so number one, I wasn't there, but he wasn't barred from the courtroom, but he said they acted like he was a terror. Walker had a custody trial, which if you understand anything about like family court dynamics, that's the ultimate, that's the thing. You want to be at that thing. So he's there, and one security guard, I'm sorry, don't call him security guard. They don't like that. It's a sheriff's deputy, an Ada County sheriff's deputy assigned to the court, comes up to him and says, you need to come with us. And then he's moved to like the clerk's office, and then one after the other, these sheriff's deputies are interrogating him about, and keep in mind, he's not even the one who took the photo in question. And they go on for about 45 minutes, and they finally give him this photo or this video, or this not photo, but the document. And then they said, well, you're allowed, the courtrooms are open, you're even allowed to go back into Judge Walker's courtroom, but you are not allowed to videotape or audio tape, and we ask you to, when you go into any courtroom, to hand your cell phone to the bailiff. And they made him do the song. But look, here's the reality. They were never going to allow us to film inside any of these courtrooms. So that's almost silly. But they wanted to give us a something to intimidate us over. But that's what happened. And by the way, he went into Walker's court. And I guess the custody trial was over, but he did find an interesting hearing where dad had already been convicted many years ago of physical abuse of the two kids, but mom had disappeared and abandoned the kids for 5 years. And mom wanted the daughter, and dad was okay with her taking the daughter, but he wasn't okay with taking the son.
Mm-hmm.
And Walker was put in this position where she was going to decide this family's fate. And it was an interesting case. They seemed to think it was okay to split up the kids. And I don't know what the fate of the case was, but you got an idea of like the everyday situations that a judge like Judge Walker faces. So are you able to get up that video or no?
I cannot, man. I swear. It was all good to go a moment ago. I apologize for this video mishap on our end.
All right, it's okay. So you guys can find it at azleg.gov. And if you find the hearings from June 16th, then you can watch that. So that's what's happening there, and hopefully I'll have some better news to report in a few months or weeks, because if you can get 5 or 10 states to do hearings like this, then you're going to have like 4 or 5 hearings every month all over the country, and that's going to turn into a national story. And we're hopefully, Rich and I will interview politicians from 10 or 15 states to show that state politicians are taking this seriously. So that's all I got on the Arizona thing. And I wanted to talk about a YouTuber who sues people frivolously for content. So if we got time, can we talk about that as well?
Yes, sir. We got all the time you need. Absolutely.
All right. So his name is Jeremy Hales. He runs a very popular YouTube channel with approximately 730,000 subscribers called What the Hales. He initially made his reputation from like a version of Storage Wars.
Yeah, I got you.
Like that sort of thing. He would buy these lots and then look in the lots, and he seemed to always get lucky, which may or may not be by chance. But so he builds it, and then he also, subsequent to that, it's like a vlog and talks about his life. Mm-hmm. So starting sometime around, and then he moves to the town of Otter Creek, Florida, which is about 100 people. And initially, he wanted to make it into Tube Town, where he gets like a bunch of YouTubers to all move down there, and they could take over the town. But no other YouTuber took him up on the offer, so he's the only one there. And then he wanted to do some, what I think are shady real estate deals, and those didn't quite form as he thought they would. But in 2023, he started a narrative on his YouTube channel called Bad Neighbors, in which he documented how his neighbors, Michelle Preston and John Cook, are bad neighbors. And in reality, the bad neighbor is him, because he also has a dispute with another neighbor where they're arguing over whose backyard ends where. And there was a memorial to a 16-year-old, I think a teenager, who was driving and got hit by a drunk and died. Mm-hmm. And then Hales had removed the memorial because he claimed it was on his property. And this is the kind of stuff he does.
Jeez.
So then last year he sues John Cook and Michelle Preston ostensibly because three people had found the signs. And there were these signs throughout Otter Creek, which again is a town of 100 people roughly, that said Jeremy Hales is a rapist. False. Everything I'm saying is false. He's He's never been accused or convicted of rape. He's never been accused or convicted of child molestation. But he finds these signs and immediately says John Cook and Michelle Preston did it. And then he sues them, not just for the signs, but for claims that they extorted him, tortious interference. And what's interesting about the signs, so one of the people who found the signs is this guy, Zim Paget. And I don't know if I'm going to remember that it was a couple who found the signs as well, but so both Paget and the couple, the woman from the couple who found the signs, they've at different times been the mayor of Otter Creek.
That's pretty,
I don't think that's
pretty
a coincidence.
fishy.
Right. I think that his friends who he helped install as mayor. And look, when there's a town of 100, it's not hard to install.
It's not too hard to shift an election there.
Right. And what I was told, the way they did it is there's an RV ground on Otter Creek, and they recruit people in RVs to like make Otter Creek their home and then vote whether they're actually living there or not. Because it does, if you're in an RV and you are staying in Otter Creek, you are considered a resident, even though you're really a transient. And I was told that's how they do it. So anyway, they find these signs. So he starts suing them, and then keep in mind, he's like, "Oh my God, I'm being defamed. I'm falsely being called a rapist." With like 3 signs found in Otter Creek, and then he tells his audience over and over again about these signs that he says are defamatory that no one would have known about had he not mentioned it. And he starts this lawsuit from hell, and he wants to depose people, this, that, and the other. And a guy named Bruce Matskin, who's an attorney from Massachusetts, he finds out about it because he had wanted to go on a YouTube show about something else, and the YouTuber had been covering it. The YouTuber's name is the DUI guy. And then Hales recruits a bunch of YouTubers, big YouTubers, or not as big as him. The DUI guy who has about 500,000 subscribers. A guy named Tug, that umbrella guy, has 100-some thousand subscribers. Megan Fox, who used to be my friend, we did a family court together from early 2021 to early 2022.
Okay, yeah.
Not that Megan Fox, but she works at PJ Media, not so much anymore. Now she's a scummy YouTuber, Shizzy Wisna, there's a bunch of other ones. So he recruited them, or however it came to be, and they promote him and his point of view. So he is promoting this completely conjured up story, and then he's got all these like YouTubers promoting it, and Bruce sees all of this, and he sees that it's a frivolous lawsuit, and he sees that John Cook and Michelle Preston have no chance because they have no money, and he's just going to bully them into losing. So even though he's from Massachusetts, he figures out that it's called pro hoc vice, I think is the term. But basically, on a case-by-case basis, if you're an attorney in one state, you can apply to be the attorney on a case, and the judge overseeing it. And in this case, it's a magistrate named Zachary Bolitho. He's a federal magistrate. He approves him, and then Bruce starts defending them. And to be fair, Bruce also then goes on many YouTube shows and other shows to try to present his side. So then Hales and his crew turns Bruce into a villain. Okay. So then Bruce, as all of this is unfolding, reaches out to me about another story where over 10 years ago, he defended a guy who had started like a mac and cheese fast food place called